We're live now, by the way. Hey, everybody. We'll get started in just 1 minute. Um, yeah, it's amazing to see people step up and try and make a difference, like you have for years. And
I
so
try.
some people who don't, and that's on them. That's on them. Um, yeah, so we'll get started in just a second. Hey, everybody. Let me know in the comments where you're checking in from. That'll populate, and I think there's an email going. Yeah, there it goes. Don't forget to like and restack this post. My producer says I love saying that. And subscribe if you'd like. Oh man, it always feels so icky. Anyways, so I appreciate today we have a wonderful guest. We've had dozens of members of Congress on before, and one that we have never had on before is Rep. Robin Kelly, who's from Illinois, now running for the United States Senate. Rep. Kelly, thanks so much for joining us today. How are you?
I'm pretty good. Thanks for having me. Getting over a cold. That's why I sound a little funny, but I'm hanging in there.
Slow week, slow news week. No, not much news. I understand. But there is huge news. You just left the House floor. I know viewers are thankful you're taking action against DHS Secretary Kristi Noem, in case you missed it. People who are watching or listening right now, you're drafting articles of impeachment against them. Just in case someone's, been on vacation or something, what are you impeaching Noem for, and what spurred the action?
Sure. Well, there's 3 articles of impeachment, and we've been working on this for a few months now because we wanted to make sure, that we got it right. As you know, they were in California, but then they came to Illinois. They're still in Illinois and have just wreaked havoc, traumatized the Chicago land area, so Chicago and surrounding suburbs. We had a gentleman die. We've had people maimed. We had a helicopter land in my district on the rooftop, and they drug out some undocumented, but also Americans. They drug out, and I don't think one of them was a murderer, or I know they weren't a murderer or a rapist, like they said thereafter. So she's, gone on her way. It's even though they're still in Chicago, but went to Charlotte, went to Raleigh, went to New Orleans, now Minnesota, and she has got to be stopped. I mean, enough is enough is enough. And she is breaking the law. So the 3 articles were obstruction of Congress. They're against the law, preventing members of Congress from going into these facilities to check out what is going on. We don't hear good things coming out of the facilities. I could never get into broad view when people were there. And, we've heard very ugly stories. I do a lot of work around pregnant women and maternal mortality and morbidity, and the stories of pregnant women being in some of these facilities, stories about what people were given to eat. We've heard testimony from various people all across the United States about the treatment in the facilities, and then also money that was appropriated, grants appropriated to cities. She is stopping that funding. Of course, it's the blue cities and the blue states that are being stopped. The other thing is the violation of public trust, stopping people just because of, how you think they look or who you think they are, no warrants. Holding people and then letting people go with no charging, no due process. And then thirdly, self-dealing. She has spent 200 million of taxpayer dollars. I'm sure people have seen the commercials about ICE either hiring, or they used my district where the helicopters landed like they were filming a movie, and to threaten people. And the commercials about leave now if you shouldn't be here, leave on your own, or what we'll do to you. But that money went to her friend. And so that's where the self-dealing part comes from. It was I think her friend started the business a couple of days before the money was given to them for this type of advertisement. My other concern, just in general, I was one of the last members out on January 6th on my hands and knees, and I question who are these people behind these masks? It doesn't, I wonder about the vetting. I wonder about their training and orientation. And I would be shocked if some of them weren't the insurrectionists. If you see how they advertise for the jobs, we'll clear your debt, signing bonus, and those kind of things. So very, very concerned about that also. That's just on the side, not a part of the articles of impeachment, but a number of us are worried about it. And apparently, I just read something where Democrats are going to look into it.
Yeah, and you have been in Congress for a bit now. You had, I think, you served under both Trump and both Trumps, and then
Yeah,
Biden
Barack,
and also
Trump,
Obama.
Biden,
Yeah.
Trump.
Did you under Biden or Obama, were you ever blocked from facilities of any kind? I mean, I've seen them block them from, the Institute of Peace. Like there's been different places where they just organizations, USAID. Were you ever blocked from access to any of those facilities under them?
Never blocked. And also, anytime I wrote a letter to ask for information, received information. Like we wrote a letter about the pregnant women. We wrote a letter about about food. We wrote a letter. We asked for the justification of the helicopter landing on the rooftop in the middle of the night. Doors being kicked in. You could see, because I went there a couple of times, and you could see the doors being kicked in, little kids' clothes and toys being strewn about, but never received answers to my letters, to my inquiries.
If you ever, I know that you've met with some people who have been affected by Noam's abuses of power. Um, it is when you do meet with these folks, or how are you feeling afterwards when you interact with these people who have survived these events? It's the United States of America. It's not supposed to be like this. So how do you kind of cope with the horrors of this all? I mean, obviously, you're a member of Congress, so you're on the front lines in regards to seeing people who are impacted by this. Like it's got to hurt the kids. This is something that they're never going to forget. Like this is going to be lawsuits for years against the government. I would assume. Like there's going to be a lot of trauma involved. Uh, how do you think we can kind of? I guess my point here is, how do you think we can kind of rebuild from this kind of terror that's being imposed on people in these communities?
When I hear the stories, I'm angry, I'm frustrated, depending, I'm even teary. You know, I had a mom that was kidnapped off the street. She had two daughters, one in college, one 16, but the 16-year-old had the mental capacity of an 11-year-old. She didn't know what happened, to her mom. Luckily, we were able to find her mom and work with my colleague in Texas that helped us out. But I just gave her my number, said, if you ever want to talk. And she was brave enough, the 19-year-old, to speak when members of Congress had the hearing, the Democrats in Cook County, where 19 members of Congress were there. And we're getting ready to go to Minnesota this coming Friday to have a similar, type hearing. But there are a lot of people that care, and that's what I guess I want people to know. I know what you said at the end, but there are a lot of people that care and that, want to do something about this. People have helped people. I've seen it in my own communities in the south suburbs of Chicago when the governor of Texas was sending people. People came out and helped people, gave them food, gave them clothing, directed them, or helped them get to a shelter and those kind of things. But yeah, it is, you see the good side of people, but also I have asked myself, where do I live? I cannot believe, that we're doing this to people. And it's this on top of all the other things, going on, with affordability issues, with healthcare issues, nutrition, and they traumatize the city so much that people don't go to work. People don't go out to eat. People don't want to send their kids to school. So it's moral, but economically, they're hurting people's affordability also.
Hmm. I
People
remember.
have to go out for, their healthcare needs. These are
Yeah,
the kind of stories.
yeah. I remember. Man, when was that? 2010. I remember taking petitions from the DNC. I was one of the only people wearing a suit, so I could get inside the Hill. So I'm carrying these petitions to all members of Congress. That it was like, I think it was 10 or 15 per page. I mean, printed out. So we've got huge stacks of paper for support ACA, support Obamacare, um, and it's just then we had the death panel year where they just repeated that all the time. And I feel as if that this is a different, it reminds me of that right now. The midterm election, except it's flipped. I don't understand exactly what they're doing. Do you hear any hope from the Senate after forcing the passing of an extension? Do you think that we're gonna get an extension? I know that Trump's already threatened to veto it, even if it
Sure.
passes the Senate. But do you think that some people are going to be able to save some money on healthcare eventually here this year?
Well, I'm hoping that, I don't know, we said before some brave, Republicans, but actually you need to serve your district. And I think that's what help, that people need to realize their voices matter. And people that are represented by Republican senators, they need to jam those phone lines, knock on doors, go to their offices in the district and let them know that we want this to happen. I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous. We had a number of hearings under Leader Jeffries. I helped run about 16 of them. And this is not about Republican or Democrat when it comes to people's health. It's people's health. My district is urban, suburban, and rural. The rural folks are just as worried. And the thing that people need to realize, we're all in this together. If a hospital closes down, that's your hospital closing down too. If the emergency rooms are so crowded because people have dropped their health care because they can't pay the premiums, that's your emergency room that's busy also. So we're all in this together, unless you're his top 1% or something like that. Maybe you don't feel it now, but eventually it's coming to get you. You're going to feel it also. And I think that's how we got to stick together. We have to remain united. It is so important.
Yeah, and we push just because I've worked years ago. I worked for Bob Etheridge. I was an intern in his office in 2003 or 2002. But I so to have the gloves on and sort through his mail. That was my job. But the one thing that people do is, a lot of the people watching are involved with letter campaigns and phone calls for impeaching Noam. And my producer wanted to mention that we've had 15,000 letters go out the last few days to directly to from the constituents to their representatives to push for the impeachment of Noam, and thousands of phone calls as well. The importance of direct contact
Mm.
with your member of Congress. Like, some people say, my MAGA rep doesn't listen to me. Like, da, da, da. I'm like, you got to still reach out, because if they hear from just a MAGA, like, what are your thoughts about constituents reaching out to your office or other offices? In fact,
My constituents reach out to me, and I tell them, we want to know. We want to know. I hold teletown hall meetings, and the reason I do that, my district is so big that it's easier just to do it like that, where people can call in. Or we've had town hall meetings also, but again, it's so long. It's hard to catch everybody. But I want to hear from my constituents, and we try to be present throughout my district. May not be me, but an appropriate staff member. But if you don't, we cannot stay on the sidelines. That's the bottom line. You cannot stay on the sidelines. This cannot continue. And as a nurse said, that was at one of the hearings, people are going to die. Like, we see people with ISIS behavior, people are dying with healthcare. People are going to die. So we need everybody's voice. We need everybody's voice. And again, um, do we want our citizens terrorized by other citizens? I mean, it just does not make sense. It does not make sense. But also, you know, I'll be positive when we take the gavels over again, like we like to say, when we're in charge, we cannot go back to business as usual. We have to make sure, in the richest country in the history of the world, that there's childcare. We have to make sure there's housing. We have to make sure people feel safe. We have to make sure there's immigration reform. We have to make sure, we're investing in economic development and energy so that there's, economic opportunity for people and there's jobs.
Right. And doesn't for any naysayers, some folks may be like, well, impeachment. And I remember in 2016 going into 2017 because we were planning it then, pushing impeachment. They're like, first of all, they're never going to impeach him. They were wrong about that. But like doing this with Noam, I mean, first of all, I believe that anyone who does impeachable acts should be impeached. Now, these are, beyond egregious. But it seems to me, doesn't it also set up for, if the Democrats take back the House, an impeachment of Noam, that process, doesn't that set up some sort of investigation? Like, I mean, the impeachment of Trump, even though he wasn't removed, there were people who went to jail over that. Like, there were people who, same thing with the Mueller report, people who had plea deals and went to prison over it, or had to rat on Trump. Like, it's not as simple. It totally stagnated. Like, it made his administration the first term slow down, and put him in check. So I think it's extremely important, because some people may be like, well, I'm not sure. Well, I, but you don't know if you don't put it out there. So what exactly, let's say that Democrats were able to take back the House. How does, how do you think impeachment would move forward at that point?
Well, even before we take back the house, I'm being optimistic. We're building on sponsorships right now, and
Yeah.
then, from other members of Congress, which we're getting, more and more every day. And then, like you said, investigation of,
Mhm.
what is going on. And the thing is, I know I've heard that too. Nothing's going to happen, but if you don't do anything, you're guaranteeing nothing happens.
Absolutely.
Harken back to when we stopped the floor action, when we had the 24-hour gun violence prevention sit-in, that was my baby that I ran on. And, no, nothing happened that next day, but then we were able to pass the first bill in 30 years, and it did get people's attention. But the other thing it did, it gave people hope that
Yeah.
Congress is doing, the Dems are doing something. We've heard from people from east to west coast, north to south, saying, thank you, thank you, thank you. I got one message, the woman just cried the whole time and said, you don't represent me, but doing this, you represent me. So, we cannot, again, stay on the sidelines. We cannot just say, woe is me. That's true. We're fighting with one arm tied behind our back, but we're counting on the public to make sure we get that arm back. And, we can, I do battle, or, and I'm hoping, if people speak up, Democrat or Republican, that you will release your Republican from Donald Trump's hold, because
Mhm.
we know uh, some of them don't agree with what's going on. 17 of them join with us. Thank you, to get the ACA uh, uh, tax credits passed, because they know. But we know there's others like the Epstein files. They join, with us, even though he hasn't done what he's supposed to do yet, the Department of Justice. But you know what I mean? That if we don't make the moves, we'll give them no one to join in with. So we gotta keep trying, and that's what this is
Mhm.
about. And also the other thing important, that she knows we are watching. And when I
Yeah.
say we, I don't even mean members of Congress. She knows the public is watching, which is who we serve. We are public servants. The public doesn't work for us, we work for them. And so, it's very important that she gets the message that the public is watching, and that's what this is about too. We're watching, and she needs to be held accountable.
Yeah, as we close up here, before my last question, I want to get into, just real quickly, your Senate race. One question I always am curious about. I've worked with so many politicians over the years, but what made you get into politics in the first place? Was there a moment you were like, I'm going to run against an incumbent who's been in office for 10 years, and go, like, it's a leap of confidence, but at the same time, like, was there something that happened that made you just jump in and be like, uh, this isn't working and somebody needs to primary this person? Like, was that what happened, or
At
was there
all.
a different thing that drove you?
No, I was minding my business, and I work for local government, and 5 guys, some mayors, some other political figures came and said, "We think you should run." And I said, "No, no, no, I can't do it. I'm too sensitive. I'll cry when they talk about me in the paper," and that but I went to my family and my friends, um and they just encouraged me to do it. It was truly, truly a leap of faith. I feel like I was put on this earth to be a public servant, but never thought that I would be the elected one. But I have a undergrad in psych, a master's in counseling, and a PhD in political science. And the counseling and psych helped me more in the job than that PhD does. But no, I just feel like we all do better when we all do better, and I just get my joy out of lifting boats and seeing people do better, you know? And so I ran, as you said, against a 10-year incumbent and never worked so hard and knew I won 45 minutes later and then won for the third time, but stepped down to be the chief of staff for Alexi Janulius in the treasurer's office. And he ran for Barack's seat when he was a senator, and I ran for his seat. And 2010 was not a good year. We all lost. And then I went to work for the county. And then in 2012, Congressman Jesse Jr. decided, not to run. And people came in and said, "You need to run. You need to run." I love my job, and I'm honored, uh, to be here. And I just want to do, like I said, may not be able to change the world, but I want to at least be able to change and help my corner of the world.
Now you've been called up to a different part of Congress. You're running for the Senate. Any words on why you've decided to take that leap at this time? I mean, obviously, I think it's important. Um, not just for women, but women of color to as a mediocre white man myself. Um, I'd say it's super important for the representation to be there, especially in the Senate. What was it that made you step up and run? Because it's obviously it's hard to. It's probably easier to go from federal to federal, just campaign finance wise, and
Mhm.
also fundraising wise. But doing that leap to the Senate is a bit different. Instead of what made you decide to run?
Well, I wanted to run before, but I decided to step back and stay in the house. So I didn't think actually the opportunity was gonna come, but then it did. Like I said, my district is urban, suburban, and rural. It's a microcosm of the state. I've been serving federally, so I feel like I have a good grasp on urban, suburban, and, my farm issues, even though I feel like no matter where you live, most people want a roof over their head, a job, good education, healthcare, and wanna feel safe. So that's how I approach it. But I know I have the experience. I know I have a proven track record. I have worked on every level of government, so I've, slowly moved up the ladder, if you want to say that, and I know that I have a proven track record, and I know how to work. I have relationships in the House and the Senate, and I know how to work across the aisle. I don't give up my values, but I know how to, get things done. If I wasn't on your show, I would say what people say, Robin gets not stuff, done. And I'm truly a workhorse, not a show horse. And I wanna, do more for the entire state of Illinois. At one point, I was the party chair, so we did work with the whole state. I was the chief of staff of the treasurer. I worked with the whole state, in that role also. And, I came to Illinois living in Central Illinois, so I lived, as they say, downstate and than where I live now in the south suburbs of Chicago. But I know I'm ready, and I know that I can hit the ground running. And we need somebody like that because Trump and his minions and his incompetent leaders are still going to be in office, whoever takes over for Senator Durbin.
I agree, and that is funny that you mentioned farmland. Most people may not know that 3/4 of the state of Illinois is farmland with soybeans and corn, and most of the farms in Illinois are owned by locals and not big. State farms. Yeah, so that's
Boring.
right. I'm supposed to say this again. Don't forget to like and restack this post so we can spread this message far and wide. I appreciate y'all. If you're on Substack right now, if you're watching this somewhere else, I appreciate you. Last question for you. We always end with a positive message of hope. So let's say that someone's struggling right now. With everything going on right now, I'll just be more basic like that. What would you say to them? What would you say to someone who needs some hope right now?
I tell everyone, don't get weary. Don't allow them to make you weary. Don't get lost in the chaos, and don't let anyone steal your joy. Don't give them that control over you. And, everyone can make a little difference, even if you're just saying something to your family member or your next door neighbor, to make a difference. We all can make a difference. Everyone just has to try. And your corner of the world, will be a better place. So like I said, don't get weary. I know it's easy to get weary, but that's what they want you to do. Go in your house and close the door, but can't stay on the sidelines. Can't stay on the sidelines.
I love it. Rep Bob and Kelly, I'm going to repeat myself. Appreciate you, one of the real ones. And thank you for joining me. Folks, don't forget to share this post. A link to Rep Kelly's website will be in the episode notes. The site is robinforsenate.com. Thanks you again for joining me today. Good luck on everything you're doing, and I hope to see you in the Senate next year as
Me
well.
Thank you. Take care. Bye-bye.
Onward, y'all.
Onward.